There is a very important difference between a person being strong and a person being overheated. And when you study Pitta in the 10th house, that difference becomes everything. Because the 10th house is not just career, profession, achievement, and public life. In the body, this house governs the knees, lower thighs, upper calves, skeletal framework, bones, skin, and the deeper structural intelligence that allows a human being to stand upright under responsibility. So when Pitta rises here, the issue is not merely ambition. The issue is combustion inside structure. You are looking at a condition where the machinery of action, pressure, discipline, and worldly performance starts heating up from within. And when Mars and the Sun are the symbolic triggers on the slide, the logic becomes very sharp. Mars brings force, aggression, speed, impact, competition, strain, inflammation, and the tendency to push past limits. The Sun brings intensity, authority, visibility, pride, command, and the burden of maintaining status. Now put those planetary qualities into the 10th house. What happens? The person does not simply become ambitious. The person becomes heated in ambition. They do not simply become responsible. They become inflamed by responsibility. They do not simply want achievement. They want control over outcomes. And that is exactly why this slide wisely includes not only skeletal expression but also emotional and psychological expression. Because in the 10th house, the body and the ego often burn together. Let us begin with the structural side. The slide says that when Pitta increases here, skeletal and structural patterns may show up as acute inflammatory arthritis tendencies, sharp pain on movement, overexertion injuries, stress fractures in extreme cases, and intense training followed by inflammation. That is extremely revealing. Why? Because Pitta in the 10th does not usually begin as weakness. It begins as excess intensity. The person is often still functioning, still producing, still pushing, still taking on more, still acting as though force is strength. But gradually the structure begins to overheat rather than simply dry out. That phrase matters. Overheat rather than dry out. That tells you we are not dealing here primarily with a cold Saturnian collapse. We are dealing with a hot, active, inflammatory burden pattern. The person keeps moving, keeps striving, keeps training, keeps performing, and the skeletal system starts registering the cost. The knee pain is not random. The movement pain is not random. The repetitive inflammation is not random. The structure is telling you the fire driving the achievement has entered the framework itself. And now the psychological layer becomes even more important. Because the 10th house governs authority, status, role, career expression, and one's relationship with external validation. So when Pitta aggravates this house, the mind often begins to express the same heat that the joints are expressing. That is why the slide includes aggressive ambition, competitive dominance, irritability at the workplace, anger towards superiors, the need to control outcomes, perfectionism in performance, and workaholic tendencies. This is not ordinary motivation. This is motivated heat. This is identity fused with action. This is the psychology of I must win, I must achieve, I must outperform, I must not lose control, I must not be seen as weak, I must get the result. And that internal sentence burns. So if you are a healer, you have to see that inflammatory pain in the 10th house may not just be about body mechanics. It may be about authority stress, performance tension, occupational pressure, unprocessed anger around hierarchy, frustration toward bosses, systems, timelines, expectations, or one's own impossible standard. And if you are an astrology student, you need to stop reading the 10th house in a flat way. The 10th is not just career success. The 10th is the cost of carrying external life. That is why the knees belong here. Knees bend, support, absorb force, and keep you moving forward. So when Pitta enters this house, the person may psychologically become incapable of relaxing their internal drive and physically incapable of escaping the consequences forever. Mars in this context can make the person highly reactive to obstacles. Delay irritates them. Incompetence around them irritates them. Slowness irritates them. They may attack problems well, but they may also attack life itself with too much force. Sun, in this context, can make the person deeply invested in image, role, dignity, authority, and visible competence. They may feel that stepping back is failure. They may feel that rest weakens identity. So they continue carrying heat because the ego has linked worth with output. Now notice what happens when both body and mind follow the same pattern. The person pushes hard. The body inflames. The discomfort increases irritability. The irritability increases pushing. The pushing increases inflammation. This becomes a karmic loop. And that is why this topic is so valuable. Because when you read the 10th house properly, you do not just predict career. You diagnose the style of worldly engagement. Is the person acting from clear purpose or from heated compulsion? Is the person leading with balanced fire? Or are they burning through their own structure to maintain momentum? That is the real question. Balanced Pitta in the 10th gives leadership, disciplined excellence, courage in responsibility, decisive action, and the ability to execute with clarity. Aggravated Pitta in the 10th gives force without moderation, drive without cooling, performance without restoration, and ambition that begins to injure the very instrument needed to fulfill karma. So the reading principle becomes very practical. When you see strong Pitta activation in the 10th, ask, is this person living in chronic overexertion? Are they inflamed by career pressure? Do they become angry when not in control? Do they equate rest with failure? Are they competing with life itself? And is the body starting to express what the personality refuses to slow down enough to hear? That is where real interpretation begins. And the medicine at a principle level is not the destruction of fire, it is the education of fire. The person does not need to lose ambition. They need to stop turning ambition into inflammation. They do not need to become passive. They need to become precise without becoming overheated. They do not need less purpose. They need less combustion in how purpose is carried. So this 10th house Pitta pattern teaches something profound. Sometimes the body does not break because a person is weak. Sometimes the body inflames because the will has become too sharp for the structure that must carry it. That is a very different reading, and it is a much more compassionate one. If you are enjoying this level of deep Jyotish Ayurveda teaching, stay with this series because I am unpacking these houses in a way that helps you read not just symbolism, but lived consequences in body, behavior, and psychology. And if you are a healer, practitioner, or serious student of astrology, subscribe and follow along because this is where chart reading becomes clinically observant, psychologically intelligent, and spiritually honest. And before you leave, reflect on this. Where in your life has achievement become heat? Where has responsibility become irritation? Where has the need to control outcomes started burning through your own structure? When you can answer that honestly, you are no longer just studying the 10th house. You are beginning to understand it.